Welcome to the Oil and Gas Pitch Podcast. We're here at Greentown Labs. Thank you, Greentown, for sharing this cool facility with us. This is the home of energy transition. If you're ever in Houston, you want to check it out. Several entrepreneurs work out of these offices, and just a really great environment. Excited today for today's episode. OGGN and Catalyst have just kind of joined forces. There's some really cool products that we're going to get into today. It's my first time meeting Seth, and I want to say, like, this interview is going to be very ESG focused with some ROI, and supposedly we're going to get into some safety. So Seth, you have a lot to cover, and I hope I do a good enough job to get this kind of condensed for us, but thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Warren. Appreciate you having us. We look forward to, I look forward to the discussion around the topics that you mentioned, and we've enjoyed our relationship with OGGN and look forward to that, but you guys have been great.
So something I want to talk to you about, you are the co-founder of Catalyst Energy Services, and you're also, you're the chief operating officer.
Correct. I have a partner, CEO, Bobby Chapman. Mm-hmm. Bobby's an industry veteran. He's done a lot of great things. He's an inspiration for a lot of us. He's the CEO. And then Mike Morgan's our CFO. He's worked with Bobby for years. Bobby and I have a relationship for many years. So it's kind of, Bobby assembled a really, we like to think, a great team, and we have a great group working with us. So it's fun. It's fun.
You know, Mark LaCour was telling me before this episode, he said, "Warren, what do you know about fracking?" And I said, "Really nothing. You know, like I pretend like I know." He said, "Well, this is going to be a huge opportunity for you, and I just want to kick off the episode really asking you, as someone who's never been in the field, I've never seen it really
Sure.
going on, maybe draw a picture for me of what a typical fracking site is, maybe some of what these operators are doing."
Sure.
And then we'll get into this kind of unbundling what you guys are bringing to the table.
That's a great start. Warren, fracking is a very people and equipment intense endeavor. We come in after the well has been drilled, so the operator gets a rig, they drill the well, they drill it to their target, and then to enhance the recovery of the oil and gas from that well, fracking is deployed to the site, and it's kind of what the name suggests. We frack the rock or crack the rock or break the rock, and we're basically creating channels for that oil and gas to flow more easily to the surface and speed up the recovery and enhance the total recovery. So it's a process that's used to do that. I've been at this a long time, as you can probably tell. It used to be not quite so intense, and now it's a lot of equipment, a lot of people, a lot of commodity items that get used, and pumps such as sand and different types of proppant. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what fracking is about.
And as you say that, I just keep imagining line items that have been added as you got more regulations and things change.
Yes, fracking has certainly come under a lot of scrutiny in the last years. In the past, it's maybe taken a few hits from kind of public opinion on what it is, but we all realize we need energy, and this is it's a method for us to get economical energy. It's a process that allows that.
So this is great, because I think oil and gas operators need to be paying attention to this conversation we're about to have. I also just kind of ground floor level, kind of informational. I'd like to just know, what was your mission when you formed this company? What was the vision? And then that way we can all kind of be ready for what we're about to get into.
Sure. So it's a tug of war, right? So you look at the process of fracking today, and there's kind of the major cost buckets. There's all that equipment that I talked about. That's one of the cost of that is from a capital perspective. Mm-hmm. It's very capital intense. There is the cost of just the operating expense, the fuel, and all that supports the process itself. So when we started Catalyst, my co-founder and CEO, Bobby Chapman, and Mike Morgan, our CFO, we started it with the idea of how do we change that equation a little bit. How do we make a difference that's not a 1 or 2 or 3% difference, but a leapfrog in technologies, and maybe something that is truly changes the equation. So that was the start of it, is like, how do you balance that need for this capital intense, all this capital equipment, and also being able to make a return that is just, justifies the effort.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, with that, I feel like new technology, I know you're going to get into efficiency and just something I heard you say that I think really is exciting to get into is you're not talking about like just single digit savings. We're going to get into carbon footprint. And with that, I say, everybody hang on tight. Let's kind of dive into this. And I'm ready to see what Catalyst is doing, and then also see how you guys kind of becoming part of the equation really makes an impact for operators.
Sure. Great. So part of the part that we talked about earlier, this is capital and it's equipment intense. On a typical frac site, we may have 20 pumps. These are large, very large, 2,500 horsepower engines that, 12 cylinder, you look at.
Sounds like a gas guzzler.
They love fuel.
Yeah.
To the tune of 35 plus 1,000 gallons a day of diesel consumption on a day, maybe more, depending on where you are, depending on the type of work, but
and there's no Costco to save your money.
No.
There's an expense, a serious expense.
There's it's a lot of fuel, very fuel intensive. And when we looked at that, it's like, okay, how do we take something and we can reduce that number a little bit? That's a big number. Back in 2017, when the concept came forward, we came up with the concept, fuel prices weren't quite what they are today. We look at liquid fuels today, what diesels cost, and there's a little bit of break in the industry when we're using fuel in the field. But I was on the interstate driving the other day. I saw diesel for $4.06 a gallon.
Right.
It's a bit it's amazing where the price has gone. So big expense. It's a big bucket. Part of the operating expense is very large, and how do you reduce that? That was the driver behind
Awesome. And so how do you?
So I'm glad you asked. Thank you so much. So Vortex Prime is our direct drive turbine, 100% natural gas fueled frac technology. It's a military grade aeroderivative turbine. So if you're thinking reliability and like keeping planes in the air and protecting troops, you'd be spot on with that.
And is natural gas something that's different than what's already being used in the field?
So there are some technologies that use percentages of natural gas. There is another technology that uses natural gas to generate electricity. Then they take that electricity and they power electric motors. The direct drive advantage is that you don't have those mechanical losses. We directly drive through a drivetrain, gearing train to get to the pump.
Wow.
So
it's more linear.
It's more linear. It's agile. It's a very small footprint, and several of the things that we really like about it. The big amazing thing for us is the savings on fuel. Fuel, as I said, is one of the bigger, probably close to a third of the cost of completing the well, and the fracturing part of that is fuel related. So you've got a big target. If you can shave off a bit of it, you're talking a really big number.
Back to the line items up from an OpEx standpoint.
Yes. One of the advantages that we really see on the fuel side is that there's the savings themselves, but the emissions. When you stop burning 30,000 gallons a day of liquid fuel or some high percentage of that, there is significant emission reduction.
Yeah, I read somewhere in my notes here, it just shows that it can be 30% plus in this case. I mean, that's a tremendous number. That's a third I have 8th grade math, but close to a third.
Yes. Plus, we're excited about what that means for the communities we live in, and looking at how do we how do we be good stewards of of our portion and our spot that we play in this overall equation. One of the things about this that's really exciting is we have the ability to take gas that would go to the flare boom and be flared to get rid of. We can take that gas and utilize it to fuel this.
Wow.
So it's really taking a waste product that otherwise isn't benefiting the industry or anybody in any way, and take that and use it to fuel this technology.
How incredible to think of that people are just burning off fuel just because there's no other way to utilize it, and you guys have a way to actually take it and make it do something.
Yes, we're excited about what that could mean, and the financials of that, right? You're taking a waste product that's literally being burned, and utilizing that. That's the direction we're heading. Currently, we're using compressed natural gas as the first step in this technology, roadmap that we're on. But we're, making those innovations now, working with other partners to get that to the point where we can deploy that in the field. So I'm excited about what that means.
Incredible.
So, Warren, one of the things that's really exciting is the footprint reduction. We've been able to take all this horsepower and concentrate it down. We've built it on a smaller frame, smaller unit, so we have a 55% reduction in footprint required. We work a lot in West Texas. That's not always such a big issue, except operators have to build pads to take care of these large frac fleets. We have reduced the amount of pad size, which is the area that we operate. We've reduced the need for that to be so large. And of course, there's areas in the world where real estate's at a premium. You may be fracking on the side of a mountain, or you may be close to someone's, in a neighborhood, close to someone's backyard. So this smaller footprint has an advantage.
It's like I look at this slide and I can't help but think what a challenge it must be, like in your first calls. Sometimes that when the numbers are too good, it works against you, right?
Yes.
It's like people sit down and they want to think like, no, this can't be real. But what I'm reading here is that a company could go from, in a conventional space, 20 frac pumps to actually engaging with you and moving that down to 8 turbine frac pumps. And that just seems like, being my sales background, a lot of times when you are so competitive and you're making such a big impact, it almost feels like we have to work twice as hard to get the message out.
Right. It's one of those things you almost have to see it. We talk about it, and then it's kind of hard for people to visualize it. You're right. And it's what's in our kind of our mindset, right? We're used to seeing all this equipment, and to be able to reduce that and do the same amount of work is incredible.
And I would also imagine, as I look at this, and here it is, a 55% reduced fleet footprint. I would also think that there's many boots on the ground that are touching what's going on here. And so in a way, it's sometimes a collaborative decision for them to make a change. It could be difficult because you're trying to get several personalities to see what they should be doing and not what they've been used to doing.
Yes, you have to have buy-in. And at Catalyst Energy Services, we've got a great group that's really bought into the vision. They see the benefits. Really proud to be on this team and have the team that we do. You're right. It comes down to boots on the ground, the support that you have at that level. We can, you can have great technology, but if you don't have a great organization to lay it on and have them use it, it doesn't mean a lot. So that's been a big benefit. One of the things that they see immediately, and this is, I came up through the field, so I kind of remember those days, and we have to rig up 8 units as opposed to 20. That's a very intense. That's a calorie. It's a caloric workout, right? When you're rigging up pumps, it's a lot of heavy pipes and hoses and equipment and spotting equipment. It's a very dynamic time, and so now we've reduced that. So these guys are like, hey, I've got less pieces of equipment to hook in.
Probably makes your day a little brighter.
It does.
If you're on the field.
It does. And a typical move to rig down and rig up a traditional fleet of 20 may be 24 hours, maybe 36, maybe more, just depending on where you're going, and the setup on each pad is a little different. We think we can do a move in 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours. So there's a big reduction in move time,
and here it is. I'm not a math guy. I'm really not. But when I'm listening to what you're saying from a production standpoint, I'm thinking where some people need 2-3 days of runway to just get started. You're saying that you can hit the red button right away in 8 hours potentially, and you're up and running.
That's right.
That has to mean something. I don't know which line item that affects, but it sure seems like from a revenue standpoint, it gets you making money quicker.
It does, and it benefits the operator. The one thing that none of us can buy is time, right? So if we can do more work in the same amount of time, that's beneficial to not only us but our customers as well. And there's a lot of support companies that support this frac as well, so they benefit from that. As well. The other thing that's real neat about this is, from a safety perspective, is one of the most dangerous things we do is drive, and that rig up that I talked about, that rig up and that rig down. So we're driving less, man. That's from a risk perspective, and your insurance background. I understand. I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah, the Permian Basin is just known for constant accidents, and it drives the cost across the board. And then on top of that, from a labor perspective, every injury costs you not just production, but it costs you money.
Yeah. It keeps us up at night, and the reduction of that risk just due to less frequency, less intensity. There's a value not only to us but our industry as a whole, I think. If we can lead the charge in that, that's something we don't take lightly.
It's like the difference between somebody riding a motorcycle every day and just for fun on the weekends. It's a big difference.
It is a big difference. We also, and I didn't think about it. I've got some young teammates, and they keep me, they keep Bobby and I and Mike and I grounded on what matters and what matters to them. And it was one of the ladies that's on our team, and she says, "You guys are going to be rolling through towns and school zones less, and you're going to be tearing up less highways." And we didn't think about it at first, and I'm going back a few years, but now we do. We realize that we're going to have less of an impact on the communities within which we operate, which I think is a great benefit. You know?
I think anytime anyone in the oil and gas industry proves to be good for the community, it goes a long way. And of course, what we're talking about is really safety. Haphazardly, I'm saying, it's going to save you money. It's going to allow you to be more productive because your team is safer. But really, it is about the people. It is about the community. The most important asset to any business are the teams and the people that they serve. You know? Great. No, I love this, and it says a lot. I feel like we just kicked this thing off, and we've got a couple items here that are hugely impactful for the companies that you guys serve. But more importantly, a message that is good for how business will go for 2022 for the people that choose to look into this.
Sure. You mentioned earlier emissions, and we talk about emissions. One of the things that I like to talk about goes along with emissions is waste stream. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very equipment intense business. Burning diesel, you have periodic preventative maintenance that occurs to be able to keep that equipment operating. It's its most reliable output. And when we look at a fleet that's 20, envision that picture we had of 20 on a location, and every 250 hours you have to do something, every 500 hours you have to do something, every 1,000 hours there's some level of maintenance, fluids and filters and things that are going on. These turbines are much more simpler. There's less of them, so that's good. It's hard to think of a turbine as being simple, but it is. And up to 25,000 gallons reduced waste.
Wow.
Oils and fluids. That's big. That's a big impact. Over 16,000 pounds of waste reduced that's not going into landfills in the forms of filters and the packaging that they're in. So we didn't necessarily start with that in mind, but as we got into it and we started seeing the other benefits, the secondary and tertiary benefits of it, like, wow, it's got a big impact.
It is. I mean, looking at this slide again, it's like going back to community. This goes beyond just, whoever that 25-mile radius of the project is. This is for Mother Earth. Like,
That's right.
You're making a difference in a big way that affects all of us, regardless of our zip code.
That's right. Of course, we love the fact that every pound we reduce and every gallon we reduce has a financial benefit for us, because it takes people to make that happen. And it's very, I guess it's an intense, I use that word a lot because it is. It takes a lot to keep a traditional fleet up and running and doing the work that it does and keep it operating at its prime. So we like the fact that there's a big, a waste stream reduction that's significant and impactful.
And measurable. I mean,
Measurable.
that's the best part, is that when it comes to, people sometimes forget that all of us who support the oil and gas industry, we have kids, and we want our kids to have a wonderful life. And
I've got grandkids
okay.
now.
Oh, dang. See, you got grandkids. The point is that we want to sustain Mother Earth. And when I look at this, and from an operations standpoint, yes, money and what the stockholders think and all that matters. Right. But we're also at a point where, this is kind of, I'm haphazardly joking, but it's like, it used to be where someone could be smoking cigarettes but not invest in Philip Morris, or they invest in Philip Morris but they are completely against smoking. The way we all are now is very conscientious, and I think that from a leadership standpoint, seeing something like this, how would you not explore it? Why would you not want to do a discovery to make an impact for your oil and gas operation?
Exactly right. We realize we're probably, going forward, we're all being measured with a different yardstick.
Yes.
And this is something we take pride in, the fact that we're able to add a benefit. We understand that the emissions is big. We can't downplay that. We understand that taking something that's being, in some cases, being just flared off and utilizing that's a great benefit as well.
So on this slide, I just want to get into this real quick, which is, I see that you have the image of the water, and it shows a reduction of 170,000. Like, what is that?
The 170,000 water bottle note here is to show what that reduction in waste stream equates to. We had some great people that put that together and kind of in terms that a lot of us can understand, right? I mean, try to make it relatable.
Gives you a visual,
a visual that, what does this mean? And it's a significant reduction. So Warren, it's great. We've discussed a lot of the emission savings and the efficiencies of Vortex Prime.
And I feel like we talked about the environment. I mean, we're covering something that to all of us, no matter what industry you're in, it matters.
Yeah. Who doesn't want that to benefit, have something or use something that benefits the environment? We're proud of all of those things. We're pleased with what we see and with Vortex Prime. But one of the other things is safety. And I look at our safety performance. When you set up a company, it's kind of like a blank sheet of canvas, right? You get to look at how you want to do things. And from a technology perspective, we looked out and we saw what was available and looked at what we wanted to do and what compared. And the same from safety. We brought human performance in kind of as a foundation for our safety from day one. Great team that leads that and has put that together. And everybody wants to touch wood when they talk about safety, but we're 30 months with no accident free. Again, did I mention that this is equipment and labor intense endeavor? So there's
a lot of rigmarole,
a lot going on. So we're so proud of our team for their being conscious of what we do and really looking at that. This Vortex Prime, it supports that just from some of the safety features that we have on it that allow us to have less rig up and less trips. It's simple. It's self-contained. I'm not sure I talked about that. It's a real
Self-contained?
It's fundamental difference really between what some other technologies are. We back in, we hook fuel to it, we hook it up to the wellhead, we take some fluid coming into it, and that's it. There's
Wow.
we don't really need anything. It totally supports itself. Each unit is self-supportive.
So
there's some simplicity there, which drives safety, right?
Yeah.
They go hand in hand.
Well, you already have this huge reduction in like commuting, and you have less of the really dangerous stuff happening.
Right.
But going back to the self-contained part, are you saying that the companies that aren't accessing a technology like this or don't have a Vortex Prime, they're doing it a different way that's not self-contained? They're having to like use external
Some of
sources?
those require external power from some source, either a external genset
Sure.
to power to give to give electricity. We carry all of that on board with us, so it's 100% self-contained, which is exciting. And we built it when we crafted the idea for the product. That was one of the things we wanted. We wanted to be able to go anywhere with it and it be self-contained. Now obviously we've got to have fluid coming in, and we've got to account for fluid going out, and we've got to have fuel. But aside from those three components, we can go operate anywhere. So it's pretty amazing. It kind of takes the back seat a lot of times to emissions and all some of the other benefits of the technology. But I'm excited about that part.
Yeah, it's like this whole interview is like us talking on one hand ROI, right? So everybody, if you're in business to make money, you think ROI. But then we have this focus on ESG, which is take care of your people, take care of the earth, right? Be environmental.
Right.
And we've spoken to that, and it's like this option of what Catalyst is, and an operator basically opening this chapter into how they operate is choosing both. Again, I'm not an operator, but I would think this would be something I'd want to explore right away.
We're ready.
Yeah.
yeah. We're ready. It's you're right. We realized early on that we had to be very CapEx competitive. There's options out there where maybe the economics aren't quite as good as they need to be for investment and sustainability. We also realized that from an OpEx perspective, we had to be very competitive. And we know we've hit on a formula here that satisfies both of those. The economics from a systems perspective to the operator, the economics for Catalyst, and the OpEx that is beneficial to both parties as well. We're excited on that.
Yeah, the safety element too. I just think from a culture standpoint of, when you imagine an employee waking up that morning and putting on their boots, it makes a difference to know that there is these ancillary things that are quite important, right? I mean, they're vital for your livelihood, and it feels like the people that incorporate this into how they frack would actually be really doing something quite loving for their people.
Sure. Yeah, our field operators probably don't put their boots on in the morning and think a lot about the CapEx and the OpEx.
Yeah.
They do think about the operation and the safety and what's on my plate today, and
That's right.
this technology really gives them a lot to be excited about. One thing, Warren, that comes up sometimes is we've heard, well, great, you guys have this great new technology. You're a new company, let us know when you got some experience under your belt. Well, we've been around for going on 4 years now. We're just a few months shy of 4 years. We've got a team that's put together a great track record. We've got a slide here, and it's showing some stats on it, and these stats are a little bit dated, but we're over 9,000 stages that we've completed.
Wow.
So that's a lot of work we've put behind us.
Well, and what I love too about your company is it's not like you just make some moves and y'all quit. You guys are constantly innovating, and so these clients are being able to benefit from all this research and the development of these solutions, going back to the idea that there's more products hitting the market that you guys have designed.
Yes, exactly. We're constantly evolving. We're looking at innovation at every step. We're guys that like to look at how do we get better? How do we continually get better? What are the problems that are out there? And we, at times you hit a bottleneck and you say, okay, how do I fix that component, and how do I fix the next component? And that's part of innovation. That's part of the challenge, but it's also part of the reward for a company like Catalyst Energy Services. How do you got to have a team that appreciates that, because it's not always easy, right? Doing the same thing over and over is easy, but truly looking ahead and saying, okay, how do we take something and make it better?
Sure.
That's the challenge, and we're blessed to have a team. Really blessed to have a team that appreciates that.
So now I kind of want to bounce off of this slide and really dive into some just different questions that I have that you are experiencing in the marketplace. Because a lot of times in my interviews, towards about the 3/4 mark, I ask about misconceptions, right? Because a lot of times companies are challenged with the bias of the buyer. Like basically a buyer assumes that something's going to cost more than what it's going to save, or they assume there's a long onboarding runway required. So my question for you is let's talk about the average operator that right now does not know you. You pull up into their parking lot, you walk into this office, and you have somebody who's willing to listen to you attentively. What are some of the biases or misconceptions that they have that you find and your team finds when just wanting to share this message, and for these people to really open the door to something that has several components to it that would make it great for a company?
Great question, Warren. And you're right. It's there are biases out there. We've heard before, well, you guys are new, so come back when you've got more experience. We heard that very early on when we were in the development stages, and my team likes to say we were selling a dream. Back then we didn't have a viable, we didn't have a product. It was in development. We've gotten beyond that. The stats show that we're, a lot of experience for a young company. The other thing is I think a bias is that, well, I can't afford it. You're offering me the sun and the moon, but I can't afford it. When in reality, we're talking about being able to save them significant money, maybe $2 million a month savings.
Wow.
We will enjoy some of that savings with them, the benefit of that. But the overall system cost will go down.
That's incredible. $2 million a month.
Yes, and maybe more. Well, we talked about the flare gas. That's kind of the holy grail. If we get to the point where we're literally taking something right before it's being burned for no reason, I'll say, and I know that's it's not super accurate. They have to get rid of it some sort of way. But if we can take that and reuse it,
or avoid it from being just thrown out.
That's right. Avoid it from being destroyed.
Yeah.
There is a significant even increase above that. So we're talking about changing the equation.
Yeah.
This is game changer for sure. And I know that term gets overused maybe, but when you can take that cost and reduce it by a couple of $1 million a month, that's significant.
I met you today, and I'm thinking, okay, I know this was regarding fracking. I knew there was kind of a money element to it, an environmental element to it. And then you throw in safety. And I would imagine that, yes, if you're a community that you find out that the local operator is going to go this route, wow, how great to have, instead of 20 turbines going. Is that what they are, turbines? I'm retaining
20 units.
20 units rolling. You could actually do 8.
8 turbines,
yes.
That's right.
And you're still having the same production. It's a real powerful thing. Okay, but from an ESG standpoint, what I've noted, I've been around the oil and gas industry more so like with leadership, and I hear kind of word on the street. And it's interesting where a lot of executives that are supposedly like in control of what the ESG, what the ESG model is for their company, they always tell me anyway that they would love to meet other ESG people to kind of hear what they're doing, and kind of it's a very new thing, and there's always kind of different ideas and things that people are learning constantly, and you almost just want to know the word on the street. What are your counterparts doing? So my question to you is from an ESG standpoint, how does an operator kind of share this message? Like if they do leverage your company and make this part of their operation, where does the ESG component come in? How do they report it? How do they share it with the world?
We work with operators very small to very large. And I think probably the way they share it and maybe the intensity that they want to share it is probably different among that group. I think it's very easy for them to work with us and they'll see the savings. So it's real data, it's real data that gets generated, and they can show that to whatever audience they want, whether it's through their board or through their media. Sometimes just the local talk, with some of the guys of hey, we used this Vortex Prime technology and we saved fuel, or we had reduced, traffic or whatever. It's ESG takes on a different meaning to different people, right? Based on your kind of your perspective. So.
No, I love that. And so as we kind of close out the interview, I do want to give everyone an opportunity to know how to reach out to you or your company, and really what is the best pathway for them to learn more and possibly set a meeting with you?
Yeah, the best way for operator to get in touch with us is through our website. Of course, we have links there that we will get, the right person will get in touch with them, and we would love the opportunity to have a more in-depth discussion about some of the other benefits that we didn't talk about today.
It's a deep dive.
So I've got a team that's what they do. They're in the starting block, so to speak. They love that's what fires them up every day, is to go talk about this. You'd probably been beneficial to have had one of those guys here, but it would have turned into a tech talk only. And
I didn't want to do that. I think the fact that here it is, it's a company you mentioned, 4 years running. You guys really had an incredible mission, which is to make an impact on several different silos that challenge these operators. I think that was the message that was important to me to get out. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so before we kick off and I say bye to everybody, any last thing you want to share before we go?
Stay tuned. This is just the start. We look forward to coming back and talking about other advancements in technology and innovation. So appreciate it.
And I hope that the folks listening, that you consider this. It's a very empowering thing to open up not just something that's good for the environment and good for ROI, but safety. I mean, for your teams, your culture. And with that, I will encourage you to reach out. I'll have all of the contact information for Seth and Catalyst in our show notes. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much, Seth. I appreciate you coming by.
Thank you, Warren. Thanks. You so much.